If I play you this melody on the piano, you might recognize it as Maple Treeway, one of Mario Kart Wii's iconic courses. But if I take that melody and put it into a minor key, well, it sounds pretty different. But it turns out another track from the same game uses this minor key version as a part of its music. You might not have spotted it before, but it's there if you know where to listen. But that's not all. Did you notice the Smash Bros song that can be played forwards or backwards and still sounds the same? And have you ever wondered why Boo's voice suddenly changed in the year 2004? Today, we're rounding up a bunch of Nintendo musical secrets and mysteries and solving them all. Let's get started! Number 1. First, let's talk about Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and specifically the stage Final Destination. Now, the Smash Bros. Games have a long tradition of using the game's main theme as part of the Final Destination music track. And Ultimate follows this rule, even more so than other Smash games. It starts out as you'd expect, with a high-energy, chaotic arrangement of the game's theme. But about halfway through, the melody changes to something that sounds totally original, made up for this specific song. But that's not quite true, because if we play this part backwards, you might notice a familiar melody. That's right, the entire main theme is here in reverse. The opening, the bridge, the chorus. It's really impressive how much of the theme is here, hiding in plain sight. Whether you listen to this piece of music forwards or backwards, you'll hear that familiar main theme. Number 2. Next, let's talk about Mario Strikers Charged for the Nintendo Wii. Now, this game features 20 main characters, each of those characters having individual music themes that play when winning or losing. Most of these pieces of music are original themes made up for this game, but a few of them hide neat references to classic Mario melodies. First, there's Bowser's theme. And this tune is a rearranged version of the Fortress boss theme from Super Mario Bros. 3. Then we have Dry Bones, whose theme sounds like this. And that song references the Tower theme from the original New Super Mario Bros. And finally, we have Boo, whose theme sounds like this. Now, if you saw my last musical secrets video, this tune will sound familiar, because it is an arrangement of the Big Boo's Haunt theme from Super Mario 64. These 3 characters are each represented musically by some pretty obscure Mario melodies, and I think that's pretty neat. Number 3. Now, while we're talking about Boo, let's spare a little time to talk about Boo's voice, where it came from, and how it's changed. When Boos first appeared in Mario 3 and Mario World, they didn't make any kind of sound whatsoever. But in Super Mario 64, all of that changed. Mario 64's sound designer was a man named Yoji Inagaki, and when it came to coming up with the sounds for Mario 64, Inagaki had his work cut out. He explained in an interview that the average N64 game required 500 sound effects be created. Some of those sound effects were recorded by Inagaki himself, but most of them came instead from sound effect libraries. big CD collections full of hundreds of different pre-existing sound effects. Now, when Inagaki was searching for a sound effect to use as the voice of Bowser, he came across this particular laughing sound. He slowed the sound down to use as Bowser's laugh, and sped it up to use as the voice of the boos. It's a clever trick to save storage space. Now, by pure coincidence, the man featured in that laughing sound is actually Charles Martinet, Mario's voice actor. Before getting the role of Mario, Martinet had actually gotten some work recording sounds for these sound effect libraries. And so, when you play Mario 64 and hear a boo cackling away, that's actually Charles Martinet. So, that laugh sound was used in various Nintendo games for 7 years. Mario Party, Mario Tennis, even Luigi's Mansion uses that same recording of Charles Martinet. In fact, it's in Luigi's Mansion where Nintendo slowed down the sound just a touch, and I think it's actually more recognizable as the voice of Charles Martinet. See if you agree. But in 2004, Nintendo decided to recast Boo's voice. Up until then, no matter whether Boo was happy or sad, in any situation, they had to use that one single voice clip. It's not very versatile. Which brings us to Mario Power Tennis for the GameCube. Now, Power Tennis was developed by Camelot, the game studio that makes all of the Mario Golf and tennis games for Nintendo. The game's director said in an interview, "We've received quite a bit of direct cooperation from Nintendo, particularly with the voice work." And so, when it came to the voice of Boo, Nintendo decided to throw away that old voice clip and record a whole new set of sound effects. Rather than hire a professional voice actor, they asked a new employee to the company, a sound designer called Sanae Uchida, to record Boo's new voice. According to Uchida herself, "We sound designers have a small room of our own within which we create sound effects. It's well soundproofed, so we can make as much noise as we want." And that soundproofing sure came in handy when, less than half a year after joining Nintendo, Uchida was tasked with recording a whole collection of laughing and cackling sounds. Those recordings were then processed and sped up until they sounded like this. 20 years later, Sanae Uchida is still the official voice of Boo. She's listed in the credits for a whole bunch of recent Mario games, including Super Mario Bros. Wonder, where the Boos sing for the first time. I'm pretty sure that King Boo is not voiced by her, but there's no evidence to say that Sanae Uchida isn't the one providing the singing voice of the regular-sized Boos. Who knows? Number 4. Okay, this next one is one of my favorites, and it comes from The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. This 3DS game is famously set in the same version of Hyrule as A Link to the Past, and a lot of the game's music is made up of rearranged versions of that game's classic soundtrack. Honestly, A Link Between Worlds' whole soundtrack is genius, but for now, I want to focus in on one song, the theme of Lorule Castle. Now, if you're familiar with A Link to the Past soundtrack, then you'll probably be thinking, hang on, this isn't a rearranged version of a classic theme, this is brand new. But listen to what happens when I play Lorule Castle's theme backwards. Does that sound familiar? For comparison, here's Hyrule Castle's theme. That's right, Lorule Castle is the inverted version of Hyrule Castle, so composer Ryo Nagamatsu decided to flip Hyrule Castle's classic theme backwards. This is super cool, and it's not even the first time a Zelda game has done this. Famously, Skyward Sword's Ballad of the Goddess theme hides a similar secret. If you play Ballad of the Goddess backwards, you end up with Zelda's Lullaby. Again, let me demonstrate it more clearly on the piano. This Ballad of the Goddess reverse trick is super cool, but it's also fairly well known. But Lorule Castle's theme is just as clever, and I think it tends to fly a little more under the radar. Number 5. So, in my last video covering Nintendo music secrets, I talked about where this sound from New Super Mario Bros. Came from. But in the past year, a new vocal sound has been introduced into the world of Mario, the do sounds from Super Mario Bros. Wonder. This was the first piece of music we heard when Nintendo revealed Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and people immediately began drawing parallels between the do and the ba sounds. But immediately upon hearing this piece of music, one internet user noticed a familiar sound. That person was composer Joshua Taipale, who tweeted, "Immediately recognized the do voices in the Super Mario Bros. Wonder trailer. Take a look at Joshua's video." So, the do sound is actually a virtual instrument by the name of Jazz Stacks. It's part of a huge instrument library called Omnisphere, which contains hundreds of different instruments and costs $500. Joshua told me, Omnisphere is well loved by the Nintendo Sound team. It's all over many of their games. That particular sample is an old one with a long history going all the way back to the 90s. And Joshua's right. The vocal sound actually originated from a 1998 audio library called Vocal Planet. And Vocal Planet is massive. It's made up of 5 CDs full of doos, dahs, hums, and shouts. And it's been described as, even decades later, remaining unsurpassed as the world's largest compilation of vocal samples. And it was those very samples that were used as part of Super Mario Bros. Wonder's iconic main theme. Number 6. Next, let's talk about Mario Kart Wii, because it turns out 2 really iconic pieces of music in this game share the exact same melody. Those tracks are Maple Treeway and Bowser's Castle. At first glance, these tracks have totally different vibes, and their respective pieces of music sound completely different. But it turns out Bowser's Castle actually features a minor version of the Maple Treeway melody. Those two melodies are close to identical, but in a major and a minor key. Other than the music, I'm not sure there's anything linking these two tracks together, but it's a very strange musical connection, and I find it fascinating. Number 7. Now, while we're talking about Mario Kart, there's a piece of music we have to talk about, and that's Neo Bowser City, also known as Koopa City in Europe, which comes from Mario Kart 7. On first listen, this music track sounds like a pretty regular piece of Mario Kart music, but it actually hides a huge number of musical references to other Mario Kart themes. First is 3DS Toad Circuit, referenced here at the beginning. And also later on in the track. Then there's Mario Kart 7's own title theme, which you can hear here. There's also a reference to N64 Toad Turnpike, and finally, this part references Wii Luigi Circuit. So, putting together all of those parts, we get this. It's pretty amazing how all of those fragments from other Mario Kart songs come together to form a really fun and memorable piece of Mario Kart music. And there we have it. Those are 7 of my favourite Nintendo musical secrets, Easter eggs, and mysteries. Now, I didn't talk about the Donkey Kong series in this video, but if you want to hear a bit about Donkey Kong Country Returns and the weird way that Nintendo tried to get people to buy that game, then check out this video of mine. It's on screen right now. And as always, an extra special thank you to my $10 patrons: Candy Crystal, Cyprian Eov, Daryl Jero, Eli Birnbaum, Evan Kinney, Fallen AJ, Floaty Oats, Jim Gilsonan, Joseph Maltby, Kelly Wright, Lucas Little, Michael Gunter, Michael JHD, and Nix Level.